Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Win Kathy Show. I'm your host, Kathy Zhang. First of all, sorry about the delay. We had some technical difficulty. But I'm glad that we are on now, and hopefully you will find that the information that I bring to you today is informative and helpful. So it's about Chinese companies buying farmland. And you probably, we've reported on that previously about, for example, in Houston, right? So right now, this is happening in North Dakota. A Chinese amino acid and the derivative supplier is purchasing 300 acres farmland in Grand Forks, North Dakota, to try to build its first US-based manufacturing facility. And it gave the promise of bringing 233 direct jobs and additional 500 some indirect jobs to the local community. Sounds good, right? And the City Council of Grand Forks has approved the deal. However, many people are opposed to this deal, including some lawmakers on the Capitol Hill and many local residents. And they have been having heated debates. So why, right? It just so happened that the farmland is near a US Air Force base, Grand Forks Air Force Base, which has sensitive drone technology, and people fear that Beijing will be using it as a stronghold for espionage. And there are other concerns. Now, the governor of North Dakota wrote a letter to the Secretary of Commerce, Janet Yellen, on July 25th, requesting CFIUS review of this farmland purchase. So what is this Chinese company? Who is the person in charge of it? Why the city officials supported this deal, but why thousands of local residents opposed the project, and also some of the lawmakers in the federal level? Are their concerns valid? This is what we're gonna discuss today. So first of all, what is the Chinese company? It's called Fufeng Group Limited. Fufeng operates several large-scale production facilities in northern China, including Inner Mongolia and the Xinjiang and the Shandong province, etc. It counts as the world's largest producer of starch-based food and feed ingredients and fermentative feed additives, as well as products targeted at the farmer oil and the gas sectors, health and the wealth, etc. So this company, Fufeng, claimed that they searched and evaluated 25 sites in the United States for 16 months and finally decided to choose Grand Forks, North Dakota as the site. So locally, 3 farmland owners sold this 300 acres land to this company. And you may wonder who is in charge of Fufeng company. Okay, the person is called the king of MSG in China. The chair of Fufeng Group Corporation, his name is Li Xuechun. He was ranked 1,130th the most wealthy people in China on the Hurun report in 2019. So Li, he was born in China in Shandong province in 1955. So he's 67 years old today, this year. And he's from Linyi, Shandong province, which happened to be the hometown of the famous blind lawyer Chen Guangcheng. So they came from the same same town. And Li Xuechun, he graduated from Shandong Institute of Light Industry with bachelor's degree in 1982. He joined the Communist Party of China in 1985. That's his, that's the bio that's you can find online, the Baidu information, and that's the official photo that you see with the Chinese Communist flag next to him. He used to be a senior engineer who's in charge of, later in charge of a small, like a wine company, but later he went into to acquire many MSG companies. So it was reported that after 20 some years of hard working, Li has grown from a son of farmer who brought pancakes to school to become the chairman of the world's largest glutamic acid producer. So that's the person who is behind this Fufeng Incorporation. So locally at Grand Forks, this issue has become such a controversy, and in recent months, there have been heated debates between the city council leaders versus many of the local residents. The city council leader voted 5-1 in February of this year to approve the development deal with the Fufeng Group. And then, consequently, the opponents of this deal, they wanted a citywide vote on this corn milling project to have their own chance to decide on the issue. And less than 2 months later, in April, petitioners of for opposing this project, they submitted over 5,300 signatures. About 1,700 more than was required. This town, by the way, has a little bit over 60,000 people. However, the petition was rejected by the city auditor's office, saying that many of the signatures not qualified. So this debate between the supporters of the project and opponents of the project mostly is between like the promise of the hundreds of new jobs against about the concern of the environmental concerns, shifts in local traffic, and its links to an international rival, which is this Fufeng Group's tie to the Chinese government, has drawn significant criticism. So let's see some of the local concerns. Many residents actually voiced out at the city council meeting on June 6th. Let's take a lesson of a mom who drove 420 miles one way to speak at the council meeting. She said this issue is not only affecting those people there, but affecting her 4 kids.
He's a major in the United States Air Force. Jeremy D. Fox, yep. In regards to having a CCP industrial superstructure near sensitive DoD installations and economic lawfare that can come out of that. Data seems to be a big thing. And with Space Force having a satellite yard here, with the drone technology that is being propagated out of Grand Forks and UND and all that stuff. I think America understands that data is, the new gold, like information. And we have many hubs in North Dakota. We have always been the third nation, I guess, if we separated from the Union as far as nuclear power, but now we are becoming a nuclear power when it comes to data. So that is the new weapon, allowing China to come in here to siphon that data out and report it back is treason. It's really bad.
Right. So this mom, she seems to be very informed. She not only pointed out the security concern about this Grand Forks Air Force Base, but also some company who has, the database companies over there. So Grand Forks Air Force Base houses sensitive drone technology connected to space and satellite operations. And the base is in the process right now of launching new, more sophisticated intelligence satellite reconnaissance systems. So this mom was referring to is Air Force Major Jeremy Fox recently wrote a memo and circulated it within the base. Fox wrote, "Some of the most sensitive elements of Grand Forks exist with the digital uplinks and the downlinks inherent with unmanned air systems and their interaction with space-based assets." And he wrote, "Any such data collection would present a costly national security risk, causing grave damage to the United States' strategic advantages." And another retired U.S. Air Force General, Lawrence Mitchell, also warns against letting Fufeng plant so close to the base. And he said, "They are the dragon's eyes and ears, and all they are after is, to find out everything that they can about our military capabilities, our technology, the political ramifications of each." And General Lawrence explained that there's more activity right now than there has ever been. So to say that they are just being friends. He's referring to those Chinese companies and the Chinese government. And he said he would not characterize it as the way at all. He would say that they are there to do something against us. Else, why would they pick that spot? There are a lot of other spots they can go where there's no one else around. And in mid-July, earlier this month, North Dakota Senator John Hoeven and Kevin Cramer sent a letter to Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, asking for close federal scrutiny of this plant from Fufeng Group. The senators wrote, "This property is approximately 12 miles from Grand Forks Air Force Base, which has led to concern that Fufeng operations could provide cover for the People's Republic of China, surveillance or interference with the mission located at that installation, given Fufeng Group's reported ties to the Chinese Communist Party." And Senator Cramer said that we certainly would not want to make easy for our foreign adversaries like China to access. So the senators are requesting a full review by the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States, the FICIS, and the Florida Senator Marco Rubio also signed the letter. And then, just yesterday on July 25th, the governor of North Dakota also wrote a letter to Yellen. Obviously, it seems like the governor is supporting the deal, but he also asking for the FICIS investigation and saying that the priority is the safety of Dakota and the United States. Fufeng's American subsidiary said that the company has decided to go forward with a voluntary declaration FICIS filing to get final solution on this issue. And the Grand Forks City Administrator Todd Phelan praised Fufeng as a good partner. But that still doesn't make the residents feel comfortable. Some of them questioned at the city council meeting on June 6th is that for the jobs that Fufeng is promising, is it worth it?
I also am very offended how you have represented the Grand Forks Air Force Base and how you are representing. You're throwing the people under the bus, as someone said a few minutes ago. I think it was Mr. Matichek, throwing the people under the bus for a communist China country. 233 jobs. Is it worth it? I don't think so. Pollution. Okay, are we getting a state-of-the-art facility? with the technology. They talk about the technology, that it's going to be state of the art and it's going to prevent pollution. Is that what we're getting? You know, and I know. The public probably doesn't know yet. Is it a state-of-the-art facility?
That's getting reviewed right now.
I dare say it is not state-of-the-art facility.
All right, so the city council is replying to this residents' concern, saying that they are still investigating, evaluating the environmental concerns. I don't know if the city councils and their investigators have seen this report. I found this report on the Chinese news site. It's actually on a Chinese NGO group called Huanbao World, which means the International Environmental Protection Online. It reported on April 23rd, 2018, saying that the world's largest monosodium glutamate factory, referring to Fufeng, still stinks after the Central Environmental Protection Agency in China inspected. So it's reported that for a long time, the sky above Huhehaote, which is the capital city of Inner Mongolia, has often smelled a mysterious smell, which is called Fufeng flavor. Right, it is the kind of a disgusting smell that the biological fermentation emits. This smell comes from Fufeng Biotechnology Corporation. That's how the website is reporting. And it's reported that this is referring to the Fufeng's branch company established in the Inner Mongolian in 2006. It's commonly known as the Fufeng MSG factory locally. Over the past few years, the sour smell emitted by the factory during production has covered several surrounding villages, which has a great impact on the daily lives of the local villagers. The villager representatives have repeatedly reported to the local municipal government and the Environmental Protection Department, but no one cared about it, as reported on the website. The villagers could only hopelessly endure it. And in 2016, Fufeng was reportedly fined for 252,000 Chinese yuan, which equivalent to about $36,000 for excessive emissions, but the problem still persists. And furthermore, it's found that since 2010, Fufeng Group's branch in Xinjiang, the Uyghurs, right, have repeatedly exposed the pollution problem of odor disturbing the people and have been fined and ordered to rectify by the Environmental Protection Department. The reporter ended with this, saying that in addition, Inner Mongolian Fufeng Biotechnology Company has caused so much harm to local residents in more than 10 years since its establishment. The company has also been punished by the Environmental Protection Department, rectified, and was even focused on by the Central Environmental Protection Inspection Team. But why it is still ordered to rectify due to environmental problems? And would it be the same as before this time around, so that the surrounding people will still suffer from the stinky torment every day? So you may wonder, right? The Environmental Protection Department, equivalent to our EPA, has been repeatedly ordered to rectify and even fined, but the problem's still there, and that they still the companies, the business still go on as usual and even become larger. So what does that tell, right? So there are also concerns by the residents on the espionage possibility.
Dr. Brandon Mulvaney was out at the air base. One of you attended it. You
What's that?
attended the meeting?
No, I watched it afterwards,
Okay.
yes.
Anyway, his comment, you guys have told us the whole time that when Fu Feng comes in, it's not Chinese related, communist Chinese related. His comment was anything, any company that comes out of China is CCP. They have to follow CCP's rules. Everything goes by that. You have no say in when that company comes in. And his comment was, watch your contracts very carefully. Just letting you know that we do know these company is CCP. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
And another, is that true, right? It seems to be a legitimate private-owned company, right? Does this residents' concern true? And also, other residents pointed out that although the city councils are saying that Fu Feng plant, when they come in, they won't hire any Chinese employees, and but only if they cannot locally hire any employees. And one of the residents also exposed how they already, the officials sending out like what kind of a visa that the Chinese people can apply in order to come to work in this factory. So here's another concern.
We know you can't be blind to the national news. You can't be blind to what Senator Cotton has said, and General Brown, and even our Senator Kramer. It's a national security risk. 33 jobs. Is it worth it?
All right. So I think she's referring to the 233 jobs. So their concerns actually is real and is laid out publicly. If we just take a look at the Chinese Communist government's 2017 National Intelligence Law. Back in June 2017, the Chinese Communist legislature hastily passed a new national intelligence law. It not only gives authorities sweeping powers to monitor and investigate foreign and domestic individuals and institutions, but also gives intelligence agencies legal ground to carry out their work both in and outside China. Specifically, let's take a look at Article 11. You see it on the screen. It says national intelligence work institutions shall lawfully collect and process relevant intelligences on foreign bodies, organizations, and individuals engaged in or inciting or assisting others to engage in, or domestic bodies, organizations, and individuals who collude with foreign bodies, organizations, or individuals to engage in harm to the national security and interests of the People's Republic of China, in order to provide intelligence as a reference and the basis and the reference for preventing, curbing, and punishing the above acts. And then let's take a look at Article 12. It says national intelligence work institutions may, according to the relevant state regulations, establish cooperative relationships with the relevant individuals and the organizations and commission them to carry out related work. All right? And Article 14 says national intelligence work institutions, when carrying out intelligence work according to the law, may ask relevant institutions, organizations, and the citizens to provide necessary support, assistance, and cooperation. So, in essence, any individual, any company of China, whether they are in China, outside of China, they have the duty of cooperate with the National Intelligence Agency to provide any information they request, which means, anybody needs to be spy as long as the party wants them to. For example, Huawei. Huawei describes itself as a private, employee-owned business committed to bring digital technology to the world. However, the company has been viewed as arm of the authoritarian Chinese state, beholden to the interest of the Chinese Communist Party. So that's, it's being recognized, right? So what is the reason? Because Chinese Communist Party's objective is global dominance, and the major Chinese companies like Huawei, which has been nurtured strategically, richly resourced, and then successfully embedded in the West, they are the commercial entities on a political mission. So that's the bottom line. So
you fought hard to keep this Air Force base.
Okay, yeah, so
And now you want to turn it over to a foreign entity, a Chinese company, and give them $82 million to do this? And they're putting in, what, $14 million they're putting in? What's up with that? How? Why don't you use your own money? Here in North Dakota, we have a legacy fund. Very wealthy state. Why don't we use that money instead of bringing some foreign entity in here? And you bring it right next to the Air Force base so they can infiltrate everything that our military does? That's exactly what this is all about. And if you guys can't see that, then you're working for the Chinese. And another reason you should all be fighters is there's no sense in any one of you sitting on the board when you want to promote Chinese government in our own state. I simply want to know why. What's your skin in the game? Why do you want the Chinese here? I want every one of you to answer me why. Why do you want them here? Who wants to start?
Do you have any further comments?
Who wants to start?
Mr. Moore, any further comments tonight?
Nobody wants to say nothing?
okay, as you heard, actually, this gentleman did not get any answer from the city councils. Senator Kevin Kramer, during a recent appearance on the Fox News, he argued for a strategic decoupling from China, from the communist China. And he's right. And we really have to rethink our economic ties with China. Ours, the United States is a very open society, and the Chinese Communist Party has taken advantage of it. And but the residents are, some of them are really clear, more clear about CCP's nature. One lady said at the council meeting on June 6th, he said in the 1980s when the Chinese communist government put out the one-child policy, she wasn't really she didn't really doubt about it. And now, even though she said it's two-child policy, and actually they are encouraging three children. But this lady said she later realized the magnitude of the human rights abuse with this policy, and she literally called it an evil policy, and she just laid it out to see why we, should care about it.
I don't think that one can divorce a culture from money. The term blood money exists for a reason. It's biblical. Whoever's watching can Google it. This is a case of blood money. So with respect to the one-child policy, now it's apparently been reversed to two children. However, they will still engage in the practices of disposing of female fetuses as medical waste. They will still treat female children as inferior to male children. In China, the grandparents refuse to be photographed with their female grandchildren because they're not going to carry on the family name. So, there's really no such thing as a matriarchy in China. So, anyone with a daughter, or who is a daughter, or who is an aunt, or a grandmother, or a mother, effectively is worthless in China. So, I don't want those values in my country. I can't express it any better than that. Right now, I have never been so appalled in my life. I am appalled that we are even considering this deal. And I cannot believe that we are even contemplating this deal. Those people are so appalling. Their values are so appalling. They don't clean up their own country. They don't invest in clean water. They don't invest in clean land. They don't invest in ethical principles to have a just and moral society. And they have destroyed their country ethically, morally, and environmentally. And why we want to even consider allowing that country in our town is beyond my comprehension. And I don't know how you can carry on with this project, but people need to know what they're really buying here. Thank you very much.
This lady really asked good questions. So, like her, she's so upset, emotional, really asking the right question. And some of the residents were so disappointed by how the city council not representing people's will.
I am very disappointed with our council that we are having to go through the process of hiring attorneys to have our voices heard. You are elected to represent the voices of the people, but now we're going to have to go to court for our voices to be heard? Really? Really? Are you crazy? I don't understand the craziness of it. We have to go to court in order to not have our First Amendment right trampled upon by the people that we elected to run this city. And raise your hand if you had a ward meeting before you moved ahead with this Foo Farm project. One. But yet, you're saying that you represent the voices of the people?
Right, and let's continue to listen to another resident's concern.
No matter how you try to sell this to the people of Grand Forks and to the people of Faulkner Township, this is a forced annexation. You can jump through all the hoops you want. You can get your lawyer, your city lawyer, who should be working for us, but apparently he puts us under the table and looks to direct his wage to a higher level. We have been set aside for a company that can't stand on its own because you directed to give them millions of tax dollars from any and every source you can possibly dream up, which is an insult to this country, not alone Grand Forks and North Dakota. Now, since this project started and everything that you represent seems wrong to me, no matter what level you bring it in at, whether it's the water, the smell, the traffic, go on and on. You know all of those. I'm not going to repeat them. Okay, why should we waste our resources to another country who's going to take their product, most of it, and ship it back to them, who's been proven to be owned by a communist country? Somebody, whichever councilman was at the meeting, he literally stated that there is not a business that is in China that is not owned by the Communist Party. There's a fact. I don't know how much more we can do to lay it out. Jody laid it out. It's been laid out before you many times. Who is behind this project that you people are so bullheaded that you can't see the facts of the people that voted you in?
Right, so people are asking those questions. Why these city councils are so bullheaded with this project, right? You may ask too. So I wonder why. And so I tried to call the mayor of the Grand Forks, and he was out of town, so they refer me to the city administrator, Todd Phelan, and I was only able to leave a message, and he hasn't called back yet. I also called one of the city council member who was referred to in the city council meeting by the residents, Dana, I think it's Dana Sandy, and he took my call, but very briefly, he just said, when I told him what's this about, and he said, you should talk to the mayor who's representing us. So, yeah, why they are so, stronghold on this project? Still yet to find out. According to my knowledge of the local officials in California, all right. So I talked to many different officials, city level, state levels officials, and some of them who are very supportive of doing business with China, they themselves get benefits. For example, one of the former city council member, who's actually a Chinese American, and her family got. Later on, we found out that her family got a factory supported by the Chinese government in China, and others, similar different sweet deals with Chinese local companies or local governments. That's not just one or two of them. So, I'm just giving you what I know of how the Chinese Communist government is, trying to bribe, and not trying to, they actually bribed our local officials for them to come into our open society in the United States and to do what they want to do. So, all of our businesses, our local, state, federal officials, the leaders in the communities, in the business communities, really need to have a strong backbone. And also, like one of the ladies said, in China, the Chinese Communist Party has corrupted the society in China. No moral, no principles, so that they can just control everything. And then now, for a long time, they have been trying to do the same thing to the United States and the other free world. Just today, the U.S. Congress released another investigative report, found that the Federal Reserve also has traces of Chinese government's infiltration, and it said it has been building a network of relationships for 10 years. So this investigative report was released by the Republican members of the Senate today, shows that the Chinese government have been trying to form a network within the U.S. Federal Reserve for the past decade. At one point, they requested a Fed economist who traveled to Shanghai to provide internal data or threaten to put the man in jail. So the Republican staff did this survey on the Senate Homeland Security and the Government Affairs Committees, shows that Fed employees have been the target of the Chinese government's talent acquisition program over the past decades. We all know the 1,000 talent program by the Chinese government, right? The Fed employees were offered lucrative contracts, including cash incentives, but were asked to provide information about the U.S. economy, interest rates, and policies, etc. According to this report, Chinese officials detained a Fed economist in 2019 and tried to force him to disclose data and information about U.S. government policies, including tariffs, at a time when the U.S. and China were locked in a trade war. The employee's phone was said to have been tapped at the time, and his WeChat, the Chinese social media, contact information about other Fed officials were copied by the Chinese government officials. The person immediately reported the Fed, which immediately contacted the FBI. Because the Federal Reserve conducts in-depth analysis of the U.S. economy activities, regulate the U.S. financial systems, and set U.S. interest rate policies, this information is seen as highly valuable to the Chinese government. So the investigation led by the Senate Republicans accused the Fed of mishandling, arguing that China has struggled for more than a decade to gain leverage on the Fed, and the Fed has failed to effectively defend against this threat. So, as you can see, the Chinese Communist government, they are everywhere. They are trying to infiltrate every aspect of the United States. They have been successful, sometimes not so successful, but the thing is, are we aware of that? Do we have the immunity to fend against that, right? So, yeah, what do you think? How do you think of the Grand Fork farmland deal? Do you think the residents' concern are valid, or you just think this is just Chinese company? We should not be so sensitive to everything relates to China. So, what do you think? Would love to see your comments there. All right. So, let's see. James, California, our politicians are useless. Well, they are seen useful by the Chinese Communist government. Remember, all the governors, the 50 of the 50 states, they were categorized by the Chinese government, ranking them as supportive, friendly to China, in the middle, hostile, right? And analyze each one of them and using different tactics to approach them, right? So, Louis, you said, yes, that guy is right for calling them out. In the end, they will not be able to walk down the street. In the end, we will hold them accountable for their treason. Exactly. Actually, at this city council meeting, June 6th, the gentleman who called out them, at the end he said, everybody know that but didn't say it, but he said it. He said that it is treason. So, Louis, you also said a perfect example of infiltrating from within. Just follow the money. I can bet you these people all had vacations to China or other types of incentives. And yeah, that reminds me of in San Francisco, one of the most colluded, corrupted place by the Chinese Communist government. There used to be a Chinese American lady, Rose Park. She passed away a few years ago, but at that time she was named as the underground mayor of San Francisco. Every year she will lead a delegation of the city, state, federal officials, from San Francisco, from California, to China, walk the red carpet, and come back with deals, And she is a friend of the Chinese Communist leader, and assisted in persecuting, people here in the San Francisco. And so the Chinese Communist government, they are just using, like for example, the Chinese American community leaders here, so-called, community leaders, or business leaders using a lot of times they just use the business deal to corrupt people. So yes, follow the money. Louis, you continue to say citizens need to stand up, see something, say something. Yes, as we out the corrupt, including corrupt judges, we will be in a position to bring changes that will stick. Yes, exactly. So, when you see the Grand Forks residents, they spoke out. They really have some effects, I believe. And more and more people should speak out and make our elected officials accountable. Larry, you said they should have a vote to say yes or no on this farmland deal. Yes, that's what the opponents of the deal tried to do. They collect petitions, signatures, almost like 9% of the population, right? They collected this petition, and it's enough to have a election, right? However, the city agency, the auditor office, saying that there are some of the signatures are not valid and rejected. So we don't know the details of the signatures. However, the residents are very, very upset. And seems they don't really agree with the auditor's office decision. Louis, you said if we charge all guilty, 70% of our politicians would be guilty. The Dems don't get a pass, but GOPs are getting deals to just walk away. We have a long way to go. Be patient, have faith. Yes, I also agree it's not really a partisan issue because at the Grand Forks, for example, the mayor is a Republican. All right, and so the Chinese Communist government, they don't care if you are Democrats or Republicans, as long as they can corrupt you, they can collude you, they will do that. And also, they would love to just divide the Americans, no matter it's Republicans or Democrats or independents. The best thing they want is a divided United States. So, all right. Louis, you said, so glad you moved from that cesspool, and hopefully one day the Golden State will be that again. Yes, indeed. San Francisco is such a beautiful, beautiful state. If you come here, it's just such a beautiful place. However, actually in the past few days, I came back to San Francisco to, because there are some events that our media outlet is holding. I have to work on it. And, the other day I was passing near the City Hall, the Tenderloin area and the Mission area. It's just so, I felt like heartache of such a beautiful city, but just the homeless issue, the dirtiness on the street. It's becoming more severe. So it indeed is. It's a shame for San Francisco to become that way. But on the other hand, I do believe people are awakening. For example, they have successful 2 recalls in San Francisco. It means something, right? It means people having enough, and that they are trying to make changes, and some small changes are beginning. So, and let's see on the Safe Chat. Gerald, you said it's illegal for other countries to own other countries' land. Yeah, and I think, legally, United States is such an open country. It's okay for other countries to buy lands. However, when we face such kind of existential threat by this Chinese Communist Party, we cannot regard them as a normal government or normal society or normal country. So we have to protect ourselves. Okay, Ozzy, you said 3 weeks old information. How about something up to date? Well, yeah, the most updated news is about how the governors of North Dakota is also asking the federal to investigate. And also the issue I would like to share with you is mostly about how the Chinese Communist government's so-called national intelligence law is allowing and actually giving them the legal ground to make everybody, every entity of China, no matter inside or outside of China, become their spies. And that's why whether it's a Huawei or Fufeng group, it is legitimate concern that they would become the spy for the Chinese Communist government. So I just want to give you more details about that to equip with you, hopefully, more knowledge about that. Okay. And Ruth, you said a show that we need to clean house. Yes. All right. I just hopefully hope this information is useful to you. And so thank you for being with me for this show. And I think that's it for today. Take care and good night. We'll see you next time. All right. Bye-bye.